Like there's a great book called Peaceful Parent, Happy Child. It's written by a doctor
Okay.
named Dr. Laura Markham, but she talks about this 3-step, it's like 3-step framework to parenting, right? The first step is when something happens, right? A child's, behavior is, not in line with, what's appropriate, or they're upset, there's some kind of dysregulation, or a child does something, right? The first step in this process is to check in with my own feelings as a parent. What's happening for me, right? That's the first step. Check in, like, how do I feel? The second step is then to check in with the child's emotional state. Like, what's happening here? Like, what's going on? It's this practice of connection. And then the third step is correction, guidance. But what so often happens for us is we entirely miss steps 1 and 2.
Okay.
So we then try to engage some kind of correction, but the child still feels entirely unseen.
Because maybe they're,
right.
If they're lashing out for a specific reason, then perhaps it's then I can see would it be beneficial to have a conversation to be like, well, how are you feeling? Why are you doing this? And maybe they open up. But what if there's like scenarios where you're right, this is a much bigger conversation, but let's say there's something like a kid had a party, they weren't supposed to have a party, or they play with something they shouldn't have and broke it. Like what sort of healthy correction can be introduced in that scenario in which they have to learn that the real world does have consequences. And if you do something shitty, if you say something shitty, if you like if you're just a shitty person, like there are consequences in the world for these things. Either that, you don't keep your word, people won't trust you. You like all of these things.
Absolutely. But I think there's no such thing, like when you think about children, like there's no such thing as a shitty child. There's no such thing as a bad child, right? There's a sad child, there's a worried child, there's an anxious child, right? There's something that's underneath the behavior, something that drove that behavior that we want to get on, right? That we want to look at. That's the experience of connection. The more connected a parent and child are, the more that you will find that there is trust, right? That actually helps secure the belonging and the foundation of the child's sense of self.
And to be clear, I was meaning like in the real world. Right? If you act like a shitty person, and I really was kind of dismissive with that term, but that's the whole idea that if you act in certain ways, there will be repercussions for how it impacts your life.
Absolutely. And that's necessary. And I think it's necessary for children to understand that. There's another great book called How to Raise an Adult, right? And it's this idea that kids have to realize that, like you said, their actions have consequences. But how do I tend to their identity formation in the midst of giving them consequences? It's conversations. It's talking with them. It's connection. Like, what made you want to like have that party? Where did that come from? Like, tell me more about what was going on in your mind. Like, yeah, there's going to be consequences for this. You're not going to be able to see your friends for a couple of weeks, whatever that looks like. Right. But I want to know what was going on for you. And I think that's so often what gets missed because we're so angry and we feel like we've been disrespected. Right. And so then we're like all up in our own feelings, right? That it makes it difficult for us to connect with our children, right? When underneath, maybe there's just stuff going on with them. Maybe they want to feel like they're a part of something, included, right? There's opportunity for us in all of this to understand, to get to know our children
maybe they're
better.
feeling in school that no one liked them, and this is a way for them to be seen, and all these things, and that opens up this gigantic door of a conversation between the parent and the child.
Exactly.
That is super, super interesting.